Now here's the man that needs no introduction.
Hey everybody, it's Jim here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hey everybody, it's Jim here.
I've always wanted to do this.
Hey everybody, it's Jim here.
What's your connection to Parkinson's disease?
Hey everybody, it's Jim here.
Sorry, that's my foot.
I'll do better next time.
Hey everybody, it's Jim here. Welcome back to the Spinning Wheels Parkinson's Conversation with Jim here podcast. I'm Jim here in beautiful Ottawa, Ontario. My good friend Mike Loghrin is manning the controls in Toronto, Ontario. I'm really grateful and excited for today's guests. We met them twice, actually, coming across the country last year, once in Northern Ontario, Nipigon, and once just outside of Cornwall, Ontario. They are coming to you today from Cornwall, Ontario. I'd like to welcome Tom Olien and Virginia Lake. Hey, you guys, welcome.
Hello. Great to see you.
Let's actually dive right into it. Tell us about your Parkinson's journey, right from when you were thinking something was off to today.
One of the first things I lost was writing. My writing was never very good, but it was getting worse, and it was getting hard for me to read it. And it was actually getting painful for me to write it. So I'd switched to a tablet for doing daily journals and stuff. So I see that as something that was going on. Virginia tells me she saw that the way I was walking around the property that we used to live on just seemed to be looking different for some reason or other. And then in the fall of 2018, I taught an astronomy course at the Cornwall branch of St. Lawrence College. This is something that I'd been teaching throughout my life back at Humber College. And it didn't go well. And I wrote it off as, well, I'm 7 years older than when I retired. And it's different kids and it's different place and it's all of this. But I lost, and here's the phrase that I've used before when I met a fellow with Parkinson's at the same stage as myself who was in the Army. And he says, it's the lack of command presence. And he said that, and I said, what a brilliant word to talk about teaching, because you have this command presence in front of the room, not in a military sense, but just, and I didn't have it that time. And it was in the middle of that time that I saw a few other symptoms that I put together. We had another friend that had Parkinson's, and I read this sort of handbook. And I said, there's a little bit of this going on. And I went into my doctor, and she agreed that it looked like Parkinson's. Made a referral to the clinic, motion
clinic in Ottawa. Yeah.
So that was April of 2019, and that I was formally diagnosed. And I've been with the clinic ever since.
And I think from my perspective, I mean, it became significantly evident that's what we were dealing with. I wasn't struggling with his handwriting. Well, maybe not read a note he may have left me. But for me, it was his voice and his posture and his face. And it's like, what happened to this face? It's like the face I love, and it's kind of gone a little like sullen and dropped or something. And until I read more about Parkinson's, I really didn't know that this was part of the deal. Yeah.
the deal. That's what it is, right? And it's so many, there are so many things. Virginia, how did you feel when it finally was Parkinson's? Was it a bit of relief that you had an answer, or so much unknown? What was going on?
I was pissed off, to tell you the truth, Jim.
Okay.
But you promised me a good time until we died. Shit. He brought home the Parkinson's care provider book from Parkinson's Canada. I got to chapter 2. I threw it on the floor and said, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. So there was a teeny bit of resistance on my part to accepting it. It's like, okay, so we got this thing named, but what is this? And there is just this huge range of possibilities in there. Of what it will look like. So, yeah.
So for me, it was much because, you don't get the diagnosis and suddenly feel it. It's just part of your life at this point.
Yeah.
And it began to show up. So it helped to have a name for it in that sense, or direction, and certainly start to learn about it.
Yeah.
I joined the Parkinson's support group within a couple of weeks afterwards. And I think was it that fall, we went to a David Spinney event in Ottawa. I think you were at that one too, perhaps.
I was at that one. I didn't know you yet, but we were in the same room.
An incredible room full of people, care providers, people with Parkinson's, people interested in finding out, people in the medical community. It was just incredible.
Yeah,
Really was.
absolutely. Yeah.
Actually softened me significantly.
Oh, really? Yeah, I
We
know
weren't
it.
alone. We were not alone
Not alone.
anymore.
That's a huge one, isn't it? To
It is.
So, Tom, you were saying you went to a support group right away. Was that in Cornwall?
Yes, in Cornwall, Parkinson's Canada support group. There was a administrative person that was setting them up regularly at that time. So we've been part of that. I've always taken a fairly active role in it. I'm actually the facilitator for our group, which is it's not an onerous task, mainly just a lot of communication, try to keep up with people and so on. But again, it was important to have people that you could connect with and share with and so on. And continues to be an important part of our lives. Good to have a community that is aware of each other.
Definitely. Virginia, from the first night to throwing that CarePartner book on the floor, how has your role expanded in the Parkinson's community in your new world now?
Well, in my new world with Tom, I think I'm the button queen. You know, the button thing.
Yeah.
I'm the button queen. And I think it's just really sort of watching around him. And things like I decided we'd take the bathtub out of the bathroom and put in a shower that he could step into. And that was an excellent thing. He loves that shit.
I didn't feel I needed it at that point, but I knew it was coming, and I appreciate her initiative. She's much better at seeing those signs and acting on them than I am. So I'm thankful for that.
Tom's been always pretty easygoing. If somebody is sort of aggressive about the Parkinson's direction we're going in, it's probably me. And, you know, I'm constantly looking for avenues that we can push back. And so I think in our community, they're quite supportive of Tom. And he has some bike stories that say, you know, thank God for the community.
Are there any other support in the Cornwall area that you two run? Are you two aware of?
Virginia, on her own initiative, came across wonderful wooden tulips.
I'm the
And
tulip lady.
we started selling tulips at any of our events and raised a little bit of money on that. But we weren't sharing with Parkinson's Canada. We were just doing it there. We've actually established what we're now calling Parkinson's Awareness and Action Cornwall as a name to sort of associate with other activities. In that group in particular, again, great initiative on Virginia's part.
Thanks.
Pulling out her connections again. We've regularly now for 3 years had the city officially acknowledge the month of April as Parkinson's Month and make a statement at the council meeting. And then we've also followed with Parkinson's Day.
But every year for the last 3-4 years, right, we have presented the mayor, because it's been different mayors, with tulip.
Because we met twice, how did you actually find out about us?
And now here's our new segment, Tom's Spinning Wheels Tour Flashback.
Well, as I say, I heard the radio broadcast, and it was the interview that you did at Kicking Horse. And so you were talking about the long way ups and the long ways down and all the rest of that part as you then hit the prairies. So then we followed you across the prairies. In particular, we were noticing your stop in Winnipeg with U-turn Parkinson, and that was a good celebration. And then in the meantime, we were getting ready to do a trip out west in the opposite direction from Cornwall to Calgary, where my son lives. We were staying at our nephew's place at Marathon and in North Lake Superior. And we saw, lo and behold, you guys were coming to Nipigon, which was like part of the day away. So we connected with you and you said, yeah, where you were at the park and everything. So we met you. We had a great visit. And what did you bring, Virginia?
I bought the blueberry cake from Rockport, which is just down the road, and whipping cream. I think you guys were kind of excited.
You know what? I often, when we're talking to different guests on the podcast, talk about different highlights of the tour. And that cake, especially for me with the blueberries on top, that was a definite highlight of the tour right there.
We talked about you coming to Cornwall.
That's right. Then we finally did meet up again in Cornwall.
And here's the ever popular segment, Jim's Spinning Wheels Tour Flashback.
And got to cycle together for just a little bit. And I think that was, wow. I mean, that was the day of rain. It didn't start off that way, but we got out at Morrisburg, I think, and started pedaling. And within 5 minutes, it started to rain. And you guys were waiting for us. We were late, which I think was probably the first or second time that had ever happened on the tour. But you guys were troopers and waited for us in the rain to get there. And we got to ride a little bit together. And we were so appreciative of that, even though it was pouring rain. You and your buddy Jill came out and rode with Steve and I. Mike was with us from Morrisburg to Long Sault and then decided he had enough of the rain, and no one could blame him for that, and got in. But it was spectacular. So how did it feel to be part of a cross-Canada tour, Tom?
Well, that was really neat. Just first of all, catching you on our journey as we were crossing paths, and then to see you come through the rain at the beginning of the west end of the Long Sault Parkway, and we did that together. At the end of the Long Sault Parkway was the place that we were going for supper. Not only supper, but
We got to have a bed then.
Absolutely. Not just a bed, but a phenomenal meal at your friend's place. And other people came over and we had a great night of chatting. And then it doesn't end there. Normally we get up the next day and we're on the road again. You guys had arranged something with the Rotary Club in Cornwall. And we got to go and do a little presentation there and meet everybody and talk about our journey so far and why we were doing it and the fun and the challenges. And everyone was so incredibly nice. And it didn't end there. Then, Virginia, you had arranged for us to go down to
The Civic Center.
the Civic Center. That was our first press conference. Tell us how that happened. How did you actually set up a press conference?
I called in all my markers. And the mayor responded, the MP responded, Cornwall Tourism responded, and some of the support group responded, and some of our friends responded, and they just turned up. It was great. I didn't know that's what Cornwall Tourism was going to do, was to put out a mic and a camera. And then, of course, my best friend Gabriel from Cogeco came and filmed it and put it on Cogeco News. I don't know. I just called in the markers.
yeah, the Rotary Club in particular is a great connection spot. Virginia had been lined up to talk about Parkinson's to them at some point. And then when you guys came along, she says, well, why am I talking about it? You guys did not. So it was great. And many people said it was one of our best Rotary meetings because you guys were so engaged, so enlightened.
Yeah.
And answered the questions. It turned out really very well.
And I have to tell you, there are white shirts and gray T-shirts around town all the time. They love those T-shirts. I can tell you. Several people said how beautiful they really, the material and just the idea. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. See, Tom, I see you're wearing the Spinning Wheels Tour jersey.
Yep.
Right there. It always looks sharp. I'm wearing the Spinning Wheels Tour t-shirt. I can attest to the fabulous material. And actually, you two in Nipigon showed up at one of the biggest days of the tour because that was the first day we actually got our jerseys. They were a few weeks late due to technical difficulties. Well, obviously, one of the supports you have in Cornwall is the Rotary Club, which isn't necessarily a traditional Parkinson's thing, but what is the Rotary Club and how does it impact your life?
Relative to Parkinson's, when I had the Parkinson's and identified it, my nature is to sort of talk about it. And so fairly early on, I think into this 2 or 3 months into it, I actually did one of the meetings and I was going to talk about Parkinson's. I can remember preparing for it. I pulled out my teacher's hat, and I was all set to go ahead and make a PowerPoint presentation of dopamine and blah, 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 blah. And I got about in the third slide of this, and I said, this is silly. This is not teacher mode. This is my life I need to talk about. So I turned it around into that, and it was well received. And so that whole community knew about my Parkinson's, and have been very supportive throughout and watching it in its various forms. So it's a good connection.
Oh.
It was good experience for me, and I recommend it to others who, I know many are very shy about sharing their Parkinson's, but in fact, people receive it very well. And tell your story, and they'll listen.
Before we wrap up, Virginia, what advice would you give to someone in the CarePartner role, knowing what you know now?
I think for me, the thing that I had to learn was patience. The role of care provider, it ranges, as you well know. When things are okay, like they seem to be now, that's one thing, but they change, and they can change very quickly. Just a small accident like Tom had, or something like that. And the level of care changes with that. And I don't think most care providers sort of get it at the beginning. And this kind of moves in on them slowly, and they don't notice that they're doing more things. They're looking out for more things. They're trying to figure out what was going on. And we do a lot of research work. I think as a care provider, you have to keep pushing at the parameters, what's new, what can we do, what's possible. I think that keeps you going, because otherwise you just get into the mud of it.
So, Tom, as a person with Parkinson's, what advice do you have for someone newly diagnosed, knowing what you know now?
Both take it seriously and take it lightly. It's real. It's not going to go away. You can see some of the stories that are pretty scary, and you can see others who seem to, for a variety of reasons, it's not very consistent as to why, others seem to be able to live with 5, 10, 20 years and manage reasonably well. So it's not a death sentence. You can get beyond that.
Hey, everybody, it's Jim here. Wow, I would like to thank Tom Olien and Virginia Lake for showing us what Partners in Parkinson's really means. They're a good example of realizing that Parkinson's doesn't just happen to one person. It affects your entire family. And they take it on like head first, right? There's no holding back. They do what's right for them, and they do what's right for their community. And it was a real pleasure to have them on so that they could talk about what makes them successful. So Tom, Virginia, thank you very much. Everybody, remember, if you could share this podcast with just one other person, we'd sincerely appreciate that. Stay tuned. We've got something else from Tom and Virginia coming up right next.
His first comments was, it tastes awful. And, that maybe that works for cough syrup, but it shouldn't be the case for tea. So PDT tastes nice.